They shock the other side of the limb, and if it's been more than 30 minutes, they go halfway to the heart and shock you again. The electric shock going through your body neutralizes the poison. A lot of people in jungle areas now are carrying little stun guns, and if you get bit by a poisonous snake or a poisonous spider, you spark it and go back to work. So many theories abound on why there were poisonous snakes. Maybe they weren't poisonous. You can contact Carl Baugh, Glen Rose, Texas, about the hyperbaric chamber he has there, where he raised poisonous snakes, I believe it was copperheads, under hyperbaric conditions, high pressure oxygen, and increased electromagnetic field, which probably the Earth had before the flood, stronger magnetic field. After 2 weeks, his snakes were not poisonous. They were still snakes, of course, but the poison was not harmful to the human body. So, 50 milliamp spark at 60 hertz is safe for is a safe medical limit. Many stun guns are 3 milliamp. So it's not a problem at all. They say you should shock the bite as soon as possible. Straddle the bite with the probes and shock twice in an X pattern. If more than 30 minutes has passed, connect a wire to one probe and shock through the limb. This is how they're doing it in missionary schools. They're teaching them how to handle snake bites with stun guns. Or if you can't get that, get a spark plug off of a lawnmower, chainsaw, or a car or something, and shock it. It'll help neutralize the poison. All right, what about the Ark of the Covenant? Well, in Jeremiah chapter 52, it tells us that they took away the cups, the spoons, the bowls. I mean, it mentions all kinds of little detail things out of the temple. In Ezra, it tells us about the stuff they brought back, and it says Nebuchadnezzar brought back stuff to the temple. Nebuchadnezzar took away the things, and Ezra brought them back here. And it mentions the knives, the gold and silver basins, the cups, everything. Little tiny stuff is all mentioned, but the Ark of the Covenant is never mentioned. What happened to the Ark of the Covenant? Well, in 2 Chronicles 26, it tells us Uzziah prepared cunning engines and machines to cast great stones. They made basically catapults. He put these on the walls of the city of Jerusalem to fling these massive stones out there to protect the city. Nebuchadnezzar came along and said, I would like to take over your city. I'd like all your gold. I want to kill all of you folks. So they, had a big siege. Nebuchadnezzar apparently built a siege wall outside the range of the catapults. And he's just going to starve them out. In between the regular wall and the siege wall is no man's land. So apparently, Jeremiah, who was in the city, knew they were going to lose. God told him, you're going to lose. Tell the king to surrender. The king didn't want to surrender, so they ended up losing. But Jeremiah took the temple furniture outside the city wall and inside the siege wall, probably at night, and he hid the Ark of the Covenant, the table of showbread, the candlestick. A lot of these things were taken outside the city wall, but inside the siege wall, and hidden in a cave system. If you look at the city of Jerusalem here, and pretend it's a clock, right about 10 o'clock you'll see Golgotha. Right there where Golgotha is apparently where this cave system was that Jeremiah hid it. If you read Jeremiah 27, it says, the nation and kingdom that will not serve the same Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, that nation will I punish. Jeremiah knew full well they were supposed to surrender to Nebuchadnezzar. King didn't want to do it, and they didn't do it, so they ended up being killed, most of them, taken captive. So Jeremiah took the temple furniture, apparently, outside the city wall in a cave system, a tunnel system, out to underneath where today is Golgotha, where Jesus was crucified. Ron Wyatt was a good friend of mine. He died in '99, but he did a lot of research over there, and he says that he actually saw the Ark of the Covenant. I get people that criticize me for even mentioning Ron Wyatt. Well, I think he did good work, and you ought to read what he's done. Read his research. He says the Ark of the Covenant was there in a box made of like a big stone case, and it was sealed up in a room. They found this, it's like a big sponge over there. This cave system is pretty spread out. And he saw the Ark of the Covenant. He said all it had was the 10 Commandments in it, nothing else. I talked to Ron in 1982. In January '82, Ron claims he found the Ark. I spent several hours talking to Ron. I said, Ron, you realize how far-fetched this sounds? He said, Brother Hovind, if you were telling me, I wouldn't believe you. He said, but it happened, I'll tell you. He said, I brought the Jewish authorities. I told them what I found. They haven't touched it. They're afraid to touch it. They learned from a guy named Uzzah years ago in 1 Chronicles when Uzzah touched the Ark and God killed him. So they haven't touched it, but they do know it's there, and they're going to bring it out as soon as they're ready. You can see the WyattMuseum.com website if you want to get more on the Ark of the Covenant. Next question. What about Bigfoot? Well, I have talked to 10 people now who've told me face-to-face they have seen a Bigfoot. Todd Jurassic, friend of mine from Oklahoma, has done incredible research on Bigfoot. You can get a hold of Todd. He's writing a book about the creature. He's interviewed many folks who claim they've seen one. It appears that the Patterson film may be a fake. I don't know. They said somebody confessed that they were dressed up in an ape suit and all that stuff. I don't know. But there have been an awful lot of sightings that are pretty hard to explain that appear to be something like a Bigfoot. I don't know what it is, but here are the theories. Some people say they're all hoaxes or misidentified. That certainly could be true. I don't know. There are many stories that simply can't be explained, I don't think, as hoaxes or misidentified. There seem to be pretty reliable sightings with hard to explain things like deep footprints that a person couldn't make unless he weighed 600 pounds. By the way, who in their right mind would run around the woods in an ape suit? Do you realize how many rednecks would love to shoot one of those things and bring it in and hang it on their wall? I mean, that's just not smart, okay? I don't think they're all just hoaxes or frauds, though some probably are. Second theory says they're an unidentified species of ape. Third theory says there's some of the hippies from the 60s that haven't come in yet. They're hairy and they stink. Fourth theory says they're aliens from another world. I doubt that one. So bottom line is I don't know who they are. There may not even be any, but if there's a Bigfoot, I think it'd be interesting to find one and put it in my museum. We'd take good care of it, feed it and all that stuff. Next question. Who were the Nephilim in Genesis chapter 6? Genesis 6 says, men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, and the sons of God, mentioned 11 times in the Bible, saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. And then it says, God said, my spirit will not always strive with man. His days shall be 120 years. Some people think that 120 is until the flood comes. Some people think nobody's going to live past 120. That can't be true, because after this was given, many people lived past 120. Shem lived he lived to 600. So I don't think this is talking about lifespans. I think it's talking about, until the flood comes, you got 120 years warning. Okay. Verse 4, though, says, there were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that. When the sons of God came into the daughters of men, they bare children to them. The same became men of renown, men of old, which were of renown. I think maybe the phrase "and after that" might separate this into two totally unrelated thoughts. I don't know, but the men of renown may not be the giants. It may be totally unrelated. But it's the only verses on the topic. There's just not much to go on. Apparently God doesn't want us to know about all this, or doesn't want us to dwell on this for some reason. But it says in verse 5, God saw the wickedness of man. It was great in the earth, and his thoughts were evil continually. There are several theories about what this passage means. One theory says the sons of God were fallen angels that followed Satan. That's a very reasonable theory, and I think probably the correct one. But the problems with that are angels don't marry. But those passages say angels don't marry in heaven. Maybe they were allowed to marry on earth. I don't know. Of course, this idea that the third of the angels followed Satan comes from the Revelation 12 passage, where it says a third of the stars were drawn down by his tail. That's in Revelation. I don't know how this could apply to the creation, 6,000 years earlier, but it may indeed be that a third of the angels followed Lucifer in his rebellion. It seems to be the best answer anybody's come up with. Second theory says the sons of God are the line of Seth marrying the line of Cain. I don't believe this one for a second, but a lot of people do. The reason being, ungodly people marry godly people all the time. That doesn't produce, giant children or anything physical anomaly. I think it's unwise for Christians to marry non-Christians, but it certainly doesn't produce children that are, deformed or something like that. Not physically anyway. And there's no evidence that Seth's line were godly. I mean, they drowned in the flood too. So people say Seth's line was godly and Cain's was ungodly. Everybody was ungodly, Read the scripture. There's a good tape series about the Nephilim by Chuck Missler from 1-800-KHOUSE-1, or his website, khouse.org. Get Chuck Missler's article about the return of the Nephilim. I suspect, though, that before the flood came, these people, if it's demons marrying demons marrying daughters of men, probably that's true, and they're producing some kind of, half demon, half human children, and they were unusual physical traits, able to fly maybe, or giant people, or super strong or something. Whatever happened, they all drowned in the flood. And probably Noah's kids, after the flood, would tell the stories to their kids about the guy that used to live down the street. And they'd tell their kids, hey, you should see the guy that lived down the street from us before the flood came. He had wings on his feet and could fly or something. And this developed into the Greek and Babylonian legends of the gods, and Zeus and Olympus and Mercury and Thor and all this kind of stuff. That's just one theory. Okay? Next question. What about UFOs? Don't know. There are several theories about UFOs. I'll give you a couple books you can read about that. I don't have an answer to the question. New Leaf Press has a good book called UFO End Time Delusion by David Allen Lewis. There's a shortened version of the same book, a Reader's Digest version. UFO 666. Alien Encounters by Chuck Missler, again, covers a lot on UFOs. The Cosmic Conspiracy by Stan Deyo is a good one for UFOs. Basically, UFO sightings may fit into the following categories. They might be just simply misidentified natural objects like weather balloons, swamp gas, etc. They could be top secret or private experiments. There's Popular Mechanics from November 2000 showing an experiment with the U.S. government planning to build what would sure look like a UFO to somebody if they saw it. It may be satanic